Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Shades of Africa virtual conference. Today, we will be talking to our panelists about the barriers in the Alberta justice system. Our aim is to provide a learning opportunity and a better understanding of how we can improve our community. My name is Emmanuel Mohammed, and I'm part of the Real Me program. I primarily work with first and second generation immigrant youth that are involved in the criminal and gang activities. I'm the moderator for this live discussion.
Hey, so my name is Ekene Balogun. I'm actually the manager of the youth services in the Centre for Newcomers. I immigrated to Canada in 2012. And yeah, I'm in the profession. I started off with criminology, went into the Metropolitan Police in the UK, and then ended up, I'm a qualified psychologist.
I'm John Cornish. I'm the president of the Calgary Black Chambers and then investment advisor with RBC.
My name is Emmanuel. I'm a youth program manager here at Africa Center in Edmonton. Study sociology and criminology and computer science, and I've been doing this working with youth in the high-risk gang, youth with high-risk lifestyle and gang affiliation since 2017, and now I design and manage programs at the Africa Center.
I am Deng, Acuil, police officer with the Calgary Police Service. I work in the series of visual offender program, which deal with youth that are habitually reoffending. We work in conjunction with probation, Real Me, EFRI, and other agencies to help those that need to change their lifestyle and be better members of society. Originally from South Sudan, I've been in Calgary since 2001.
My name is Urick, and I work with the Calgary Bridge Foundation for Youth. My office is at Lacombe High School, so I work a lot with students that potential at risk, and also other students, but mostly the students that I work with are all new immigrants that just come to Canada. So I do a lot of presentations in schools, all over the schools, between the Catholic district and the TBE. And I've been doing this now since 2006. Originally, I'm a heavy-duty mechanic. I had an accident and I fell into this field, and I just love it.
We're going to get right into it. We'll start with this first question relating to barriers of the justice system. What is your personal experience towards the justice system?
I guess my own personal experience of racism stemmed from when I was young. Like it was one time before, me and my sister used to run into my father's room every morning to say good morning. And there was one time we ran in and my mum tried to stop us. And we realized when we looked at our father, he was badly bruised and really swollen. And over the time, she didn't want to tell us what happened, but as she was talking to other friends, we came to figure out that he was beaten up by, then in UK it's called the National Front. They were a racist extreme group. And it was just over his color. And that was the first time I realized that I was different. It was the first time I sort of realized that I was black. But as I grew up and going to school and everything, the N-word came up a few times, and then I began to notice the segregation. I think in the justice system, when I first started with the Metropolitan Police, I noticed the systemic racism. They tried their best to be inclusive, but the division was clear. It was clear that I was a minority. I could either take it as a disadvantage or an advantage. The fact that I'm a black woman could possibly get me higher in the Metropolitan Police. But then also I felt like a lot of opportunities wasn't given to us. It was typically middle-class white people in the Metropolitan Police. I worked there for 2.5 years, but also I faced a lot of, it's funny, it's a two-way thing. I faced a lot of discrimination from my own people. It came to a point where I was kind of sort of like embarrassed to say that I worked for the Metropolitan Police because it was like I was a sellout. And so I was young in my 20s, and 2.5 years later, I moved on. But I feel like still, from the time I was in my 20s to now, when I still work with the police or the justice system, I see the same thing. A lot of discrimination, disproportionate rates of black young people engaging in the criminal justice system, a lot of biases, a lot of things that I see. and even comments that I personally face. So yeah, I personally have seen that, and I still see that, which is quite upsetting.
As a youth coming to Canada and growing up in Montreal, so I've had my share. For example, I'll give one example. When I was driving, I remember one time I came to a light on St. Catherine and Hotwater Street in Montreal, downtown Montreal. And when I was at a light, my car got surrounded by police officers. I got dragged out of my car with a knee to my back and told to shut up. And of course, I love to talk, so I kept screaming and swearing. And the more I did, the more worse it got. And they wouldn't let me go. They wouldn't let me tell me why. And then another police officer vehicle showed up. And then he came and he says, "Let him go. We got the guy." And I says, "What the F was this all about?" He says, "There's a black guy that just robbed the bank. He looked like you." So I started to swear at them again. And they just told me, "Just walk away, boy, before you get hurt."
Wow.
So that was my introduction. And also, like Ekene says, the N-word. I didn't know what the N-word was until I came to Canada. Okay, so I really didn't know what racism was until I came to Canada.
Okay.
And then I learned all these lovely words as my friend. So it is tough. And I'm not saying that I have a hate for the police department. I don't. But like being a person of color and then they just judge you, like the other day I went to the bank. I felt kind of strange. I went to the bank to do some business, so I was dressed in my t-shirt and jogging pants because I was at Home Depot. So I wore my mask to go in the bank. It's a black mask. I felt very uncomfortable.
I would say for the earlier parts of my teen years, I was lucky to have grown up in a different country, Nigeria, where the majority you're surrounded by black people. When I moved to Canada, however, that changed completely, because then for the first time I realized I was black and I was not privileged, and I existed in a community where I had to always defend myself as a black man, because people always saw me as first danger and secondly human, or sometimes they don't even see you as human. So on a personal level, I was once pulled over, and the way it happened, obviously, it really sunk in that it was as a result of my color. I was driving, the cop was going the opposite direction. The cop saw that a black guy was driving and so made a U-turn. There was no reason for me to be pulled over, no license issues, no nothing. I just got pulled over, and I asked what I did wrong. And even just the approach to the vehicle, his hand was on his gun, asked me to put down all 4 windows so that they could see into the car. And when I asked what have I done wrong, there was no response. So we're just making sure everything is going fine. And when they looked at my driver's license and my registration and things like that, they just let me go. So imagine the anxiety that created for me, knowing that I have never done anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong, but other people, and I was able to handle my anxiety. But then there are other people who are not able to handle that type of anxiety and would react in the wrong way, or would say the wrong thing, and then it becomes a knee in the back or a knee in the neck, and then that person loses their lives. So imagine millions of black people who go through this situation, and it all starts from somebody looking at them as different and looking at their color as dangerous. The other thing is, in my line of work, I've also observed in the justice system different ways in which black people have been treated wrong. I would say othered in the system. One is not being offered the same alternative routes that other people are offered when it comes to the justice system. So a youth, a kid who has maybe done their first offense or has been charged with a first offense is not receiving, a black youth is not receiving the same alternative options as a kid who is white or who's from who presents from a privileged home. And you see this every day when you walk, when you work in the justice system, be it in the courts, be it in the probation, be it in even just in the police, their first contact. All of these different sectors have the first option is to charge and to prosecute to the fullest ability and not provide any alternatives that could result in maybe a reduced consequence, or just sort of giving the kid the opportunity to fix the harm. So that's something that I've observed. And then lastly is with regards to the amount of black people and the overrepresentation of black people in the justice system. It just keeps growing every year. The stats, I don't think the stats has been able to catch up. It's sort of, we know because we see the numbers, but I'm sure if the numbers were counted, that graph would be pointing upwards every single year. And there is no solution so far as to how we can reduce, how we can continue, or how we can fight that, how we can reduce the numbers of black community members being overrepresented in the justice system.
When I was grew up in Vancouver, it was I think I was pretty privileged. I went to a school where half the people were minorities, and so there wasn't really any racism in the high school. But as soon as I got down to Kansas for university, I experienced a completely different level of racism. Like, growing up, you heard N-word here. Maybe I had an experience when I was a kid where my friends ran away from me because I was black, but that's not anything compared to the States. So I get a car down the States feeling pretty fly. Leave the parking lot, get pulled over. Officer, why am I being pulled over? You rolled through that stop sign. Okay. I mean, one time, whatever. Next day, leave the parking lot, get pulled over. What was I doing wrong? You didn't put your turn signal. Rinse and repeat. Almost every time I leave the parking lot in Kansas, I get pulled over by the police. And there's never any reason for it. They hold me up for about 15, 20 minutes. So that's actually one of the reasons why I decided not to test my ability to play football in the NFL. I did not feel safe in the United States. So then coming up to Calgary, I think I had a little bit of privilege having the opportunity to play football, be known by the police. There was one time I was pulled over. Hey, your plate's not registered, but I know you're about to have a game, so you get on your way. So I absolutely recognize the privilege that I've received. But I mean, it doesn't change the fact that, anytime I go back to Vancouver, if I go to a club, if I leave the club, I'm probably being followed home by the police. And that's happened numerous times. You entered that crosswalk incorrectly. I'm going to find you a citation for jaywalking. When I was in Vancouver or anytime I'm down in Kansas, it was always an interaction with the police, not one that I chose, one that they chose for me.
Thank you so much for sharing. So the next question I'm going to ask all of you guys is, as a Black professional, what are the challenges are you facing in the justice system? And also, please provide an example.
Well, as a professional, I don't find that I get the same response as, Peter, that was born in Canada, who's white, as compared to me. I think Peter would have better advantage because of his color of his skin. Not saying that Peter is a bad person, but just myself being a person of color. So I don't think I would have the better advantage, and which I find would interfere when I'm working with a youth, because I wouldn't be able to give the youth 100% the kind of service that they deserve, because I'm limited. Okay? So there is no question of privilege on my part when dealing with the justice system. I'm not saying the justice system is bad, but where I come from, I'm from East Africa, and over there, the justice system is not good. Okay? It's not good compared to here. Over here, it's not perfect, but they're doing the best that they can. But still, I'm still not comfortable 100%, with the justice system. But I think that our voice needs to be heard more, as it's going on right now in the world. Okay, and this needs to continue more and more so we can better serve our youth. Okay, because we are, we are their champions, their mentors, their youth. They depend on us, or they look to us for guidance. And if we cannot provide the guidance because the system is not allowing us because of the color of our skin, right? So it just makes it that much more harder, and it just creates more vulnerability for the youth to get more involved in negative choices.
An example is last year we held a conference called a conference specifically on the South Sudanese young people, because we felt like there was a disproportionate representation of young people from South Sudan in the criminal justice system. And I feel like over the years I've heard that it's important for individuals to be accountable for their behavior. And I get that, but I also want people to understand that how can you expect people from certain community groups, minorities, to take accountability of the internal factors that they may be facing, for example, trauma and certain things they've gone through themselves, and decades of racism and discrimination, when they've got so many external factors that are compounding these issues. For example, if I came from a war-torn country, gone through a refugee camp and seen so much and come with all these internal traumas that I'm facing, how now can I deal with that when I've come to Canada and I'm getting re-traumatized by the police brutality or being discriminated or racist acts against me that still tell me that I'm nothing? If I'm trying to deal with my self-esteem and worth because of years of thinking that I'm less than, how can I do that when externally things like education or courts, everyone on top are limiting me, my areas of growth, because they say, no, that's not for you. I've seen schools where they say, no, drive him into basketball. Why? Because he's tall and black and athletic. Why can't we focus on academics for them? Again, limitations that again tell you your worth. So how can they take accountability and start to work on the internalized issues when there's so much externalized factors that are compounding these issues? And the way we can do that, I guess, to me, is that we have to focus, have these conferences and focus on getting our voices heard, focus on the issues. It takes a group effort. For example, we can't say individually, as frontliners, it does start with us. It starts with our attitudes and behaviors. But to be honest, when you're in an institution, like when I was in the police, it's really hard to push forward your views as an individual when the whole system is built that way. Or you've got people that have been there for years have been acting that way and you're a newbie. It's really hard, so we need to take those things into consideration. But now it's like silence is no longer an option. And if you're silent to the matter and not calling your colleagues out on talking about the biases that we all have, then it's like you're giving consent to the behavior that they're displaying. So I just feel like I've seen so much, even going to court is so intimidating as a professional, let alone young people, let alone families that English is not their first language, let alone that's another thing where actually you're not respected because they feel like you're less than, oh, she doesn't understand. So it's like you're uneducated. But there's so many issues in the criminal justice system, and not to say that there's all bad, because I loved working for the police, but we can't say it's okay to have some bad apples. When someone gave me an example, it's like being a pilot and saying there's some bad apples who are pilots. We don't want that. We don't want to crash in an airport. You know, they all have to be on point. And it's the same thing with the criminal justice system. We can't afford to have bad apples. If you see them, they need to be fleshed out, retrained, or something needs to happen. But we can't keep allowing these behaviors to happen and not speak about it. So that's just my input on that.
I want to echo what Ekene was saying. The issue about, you got to be personally accountable. You got to, you step your own self up. We live in the system, right? There's a bunch of different variables that are part of what we do in life. And if you're having to carry some of this weight from your life, you're having to deal with these external issues that we are also aware of at this point, it's nearly impossible. I don't think that there's one single thing that we can change, but I gotta say that, police across the board have a kind of job stability it doesn't exist anywhere else. You have people where you have people who literally commit murder who don't get charges, and they might get fired from their police department, but then they can just go to another one and just keep it rolling. I mean, for me personally, the police in the city have been very good to me, but I know many stories where everybody else has had to deal with issues. One of my friends was sitting in front of his house. The stars were out, Aurora Borealis in the horizon. He was just sitting there, and apparently somebody called the cops on him, sitting in front of his own house. The cop rolled up to him and tapped on his window. Sir, you need to leave here. He's like, I'm sitting from my house. And yet the cop still insisted that he needed to leave. For me, it was mind blowing to hear it, but it's just one of the many stories. I mean, we all have a million different stories. It's mind blowing, but we just have to recognize, we live in a system. The system has a bunch of variables and functions, and we can change those things if we come together like we are today.
For me, I have both experience. Like you see now, I was just outside doing some work in my car in my backyard. Just went to Home Depot. When I'm in like this, I'm just the same as everybody else, and I get to experience what you are talking about. I also have experience from the police department. I work for the police, and I'll be a liar to say that there are no officers that I've worked with that have biases. We all have biases. It's how we recognize them and deal with them and deal with issues at hand. For me, I think what's important is how do we fix what's happening, right? For example, I'll give an example. I live close to a Walmart. A month ago, a couple of black young kids driven by, they need to survive. Went in there, grab a bunch of electronic, ran out. I go in there, I'm wearing a hoodie, in my running pants. What's happening to me? Right? I'm being followed around by the security guard, thinking I am one of those guys that was there 2 weeks ago. Right? When I was on the other side looking for those guys to hold them responsible. So when you look at it from both lines, yeah, you might be followed and because of your color of your skin, but something else happened. Now, I'm not saying that that's right, but how do we let people like that know, you know what? It's not everybody of color that is in there or is here to commit a crime. Right? Because that's something that we also need to make sure that they understand. And also we understand that, you know what? Because gone to stores where a white guy just robbed the store and I'm walking in with two other white guys. Are they going to be looked the same way as if a black guy had just robbed the bank and another one is walking in? How do we get to be on the same level as a society. That's, I think, what we need to also put out there in my mind.
So when I started working with high-risk youth, and this was, I think, about 5 months in, still new, still getting to know the justice system, still getting to know the nitty-gritties around my job and understanding better. I had a kid that I was working with who was 12 years old. First offense was taking shoplifting, and I think what he took was less than $20, but it doesn't excuse what he did. We went to court. I was supporting him through all of the processes, and like I said, I was still trying to understand some of the other things happening in that setting as well. And his lawyer was asking him to take a plea to spend 3 months at the EYOC for shoplifting. And if he did good behavior, he could get out early with appeal and all of that. And I said, but this is just, shoplifting. Why would you suggest for a 12-year-old to spend that much time in a detention center? She said, well, that's what they're offering because there had been other charges that he had that were not yet addressed at the time. And if they were to do this, then basically they would be more lenient on the other charges. So I said, well, sure, I would like to discuss this with his parents and see where we go from there. But then luckily I met a Black lawyer, and I did ask him this question. And what he said is, have they not offered him a restorative the restorative program? And I said, interesting. I've never heard of a restorative program. Can you tell me about it? And he said, well, for a first offense for a kid, there's the option to have access to this restorative program where after that program is completed, this incident gets expunged from his record. So he doesn't get, as long as he, admits what he's done and takes accountability. And so I went back to his lawyer and I asked about, hey, I've heard of this program, what do you think? And that was the time where the lawyer was like, oh yes, there is this program. We could definitely tap into it. And we did. And luckily for this kid, he didn't spend 3 months in a detention center. And this issue got expunged. He completed about 80 hours of community service and, wrote a letter of apology and all of that. So why I say this is for a Black kid who's age 12 to be looking at jail time for shoplifting and the lawyer not thinking about a restorative approach to this, it tells me one thing, that the lawyer, who may not take into consideration the fact that he's a kid or the fact that he is from a community where maybe or from a family that may be dealing with different challenges such as poverty, and that's what resorted to shoplifting, because shoplifting, I think it is a crime of poverty. Something like that, not considering that this kid could going into EYOC could be something that really sets him on a track towards a future of more crime and facing more challenges or more interaction with the justice system. Not looking at all of those contributing factors, and even several that I have not even mentioned, and just jumping to taking a plea deal. That really just spoke to me that this person is not quite looking at him as a human being. This person is looking at him as another case that needs to be closed. Now compare that to another kid who may be from a more well-off family. What I think these options would have been brought in the first place, because One, their parents could have been more involved. Their parents could have been parents who are well off, live in a nice gated community, and are most likely white, middle class. They would have been offered this option, and they probably would have had a really good lawyer who would really think deeply into how this kid can be offered an option other than going to jail. Now, this example was an eye-opener for me in looking at the justice system. When I then took a step back and looked around me, I saw that in the court system, there's barely any people from the Black community. So we're talking about lawyers, we're talking about court navigators, we're talking about judges. In Edmonton, I can say I've only seen one Black judge. And most of the time, kids sit in front of judges. They're sitting in front of people who don't look like them, people who would not think about their family circumstances, people who would not think about their community circumstances, people who would not think about any other extenuating circumstances that led to that kid standing in front of a judge. When I look around, I don't see anybody, providing additional information from a CSJ standpoint as to all of the available programs, all of the available alternatives to jail time or to getting a criminal record. So we're lacking court navigators. We're lacking representation. There are no additional resources allocated to the Black community to support these type of initiatives. If somebody came up with that idea, saying, "Okay, let's put more Black people to help with court navigation for kids," there are no resources allocated to the Black community.
I keep hearing a trend, which is the Black youth. So the next lead question I want to ask is, we are seeing many Black youth in the justice system. I keep hearing that, not only the experiences, the frustration, and all that stuff. I feel like, what do you think is the root cause, and what do you would like to see improve in the system? Like, if you had an opportunity right now to tell other, service agencies, the justice system, the schools, and this is a great opportunity to just tell everybody, what do you think is the root cause, and also what do you would like to see improve or change?
One thing I would like to say is that one of the root causes is, if you continue, just anybody in general, if you continue to try and come up against barriers or no's, it's going to reach a point in anyone's life that they're just going to give up and get frustrated. And I think the lack of hope, when people are hopeless, anything goes. Like, that's when suicide rates go up. That's when crime comes out, because it's like, I need to survive. And if I've been trying to do it the right way and it's not happening, I'm going to do it the way I know. And so I feel like looking at that, a place that when people are coming from a place of frustration and hopelessness, is about hearing or understanding why. And I feel like just what Deng said is not about, even the whole Black Lives Matter movement is not about special treatment, it's about fair treatment. We want equal treatment, the same as our white counterparts. We want equal treatment as Black people. We're not asking for special treatment. And I think one way they can do this is that they need to be intentional. I love what Emmanuel said. The lack of representation in the criminal justice system is evident. Like, I remember being like, spot the Black person. I was the only one always in the big meetings. And even judges and stuff. It's true. The lack of representation is there. And I feel like organizations with this awareness needs to be more intentional with their hiring. We are living in a diverse country, and we need to see people that look like us, that we can identify with, or that people that will understand where we're coming from. Also, I don't think anyone can be really culturally competent. I think you can be culturally responsive. And I feel like the only way you can be is if you sort of immerse yourself in the culture. Try and understand different people's cultures. Where are they coming from? What have they been through? I can never, I'm Nigerian. I can't speak for every Black person. I don't know everyone's journey. So it's funny because you get the assumption because you're Black, you must know all the Black issues. I don't. But if I get to understand and learn about South Sudan, learn about Jamaica, learn about different countries, then I have more. And if I ask them too to teach me, it just gives you a wealth of knowing and understanding and how to approach people. I also feel like a lot of police officers, and I do say that Calgary police, I love them. I work closely with them, but I just feel like they come out. Sometimes we get so, and I'm talking from personal experience, we get so used to the job and the response that it's more of a war response rather than, I'm here to serve the community. How can I help? It's more of a response to a crime, and the way you deal with it is differently. I feel like compassion has gone out the window a bit, like Emmanuel said, is about numbers now. I'm just seeing a body in front of me. I'm not actually seeing a human being and the issues. And I just feel like there needs to be a great focus on our biases. I think we all have it. Everyone has it. There's no one that can tell me they haven't got biases, but it's the awareness of it. And then making sure those biases are not put into action. And questioning yourself, self-reflection. Why did I react like that? Why am I responding to that? Why, when I see a whole black boys just chilling, must there be an issue or there's going to be a problem? Why am I thinking like that? It's things like that. When you question yourself, then you can be aware of those biases and make sure they don't come into practice when you're acting as a professional. I think if people like that, and training, retraining and training, you can never get enough. I think once you're dedicated to things like that, the outcome will be better. Because I do feel like a lot of the young people we work with, their response is based off the response they're getting. So I feel like if we change the way we respond to things, we can't try the same things and expect a different outcome. It's not going to happen. But if we change the way we approach things, maybe, just maybe, we'll get another reaction, a different outcome. And just to be more community-based, it takes a village to raise a child. And I do feel like if we come together as professionals, as natural support, as one with one goal, I think we can make a difference that way.
Of it is mostly driven by circumstances that the families and these youth find themselves in. I'll speak in regard to the South Sudanese, for example. Most of you have had interaction with them. 50% of them, I'll be bold enough to say 50% of them have only one parent here and the other parent is nowhere to be found. And if it's mom's looking after the kids, she has to go out and work, right? So the children are raising themselves. And when they're raising themselves with no adult present to kind of guide them, they're free. Like the old saying says, an empty brain is a devil's advocate, right? They're free there, thinking of things to do. They're full of energy. They want something to do. What are they going to do? They find someone who wants to mislead them. And I think they start going into this road of crimes, right? I think that's part of the root cause, is that families are torn, especially immigrant families. If both families are here, they are making ends meet. Mom's working, dad's working, and the children are left to themselves. What would I like to see done is a multi-pronged tools, I'll call it. I like to see everybody working together. I would like to see the families, the law enforcement, the justice system, the schools working together. If we want to fix this, we all have to come in together, because you're not going to leave it to the police, because the police are there to enforce the law. And if they find you breaking the law, they will do their job. They may not do it correctly, but they will say, yeah, I'm doing my job, right? You can't leave it to the school. The school will be like, the teacher will be like, hey, they show up, I give them their lesson. That's it. But if we come together, we can find ways that we can keep them engaged and make them productive members of society.
That has been, like, a lot of people have tried that. A lot of agencies have frustrations having access to the Black community sometimes, and vice versa. Same thing with the Black community as well. And that has happened before. But what do you think? Excuse me. So what do you think? If that's not working, what do you think should work right now? Because that's like, collaboration is important, but it's still a challenge.
It will not be a magic wand, right?
Yeah.
There is resistance, and where does the resistance come from?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It comes from us not trusting each other, right?
So who's us? Clarify that. Sorry, who's us? Is it the
Us,
police?
I'm talking as in, let's say, the Black community, and I picked on the South Sudanese community earlier on. If
Okay.
I send a white person to go meet with the parents to explain themselves, they will talk. If they agree to, they will talk to that person, but they will hold back because they're not trusting that 100% that this person is here to help them legitimately, but just to hear their stories and walk away and not do anything, right? Or maybe not understand them culturally, why they do things the way they do. But if you were to go yourself, let's say I send you there, for instance, to meet with a Sudanese family, there is that natural connection where they understand you. They will know that you understand them culturally, you know their culture, and so they tell you, these are our issues we have with our children. You get it, right? You give them back the feedback that they need and how the system works, right? And how we can work together. So come back to what Emmanuel said earlier on representation, right? If there is fair representation everywhere, and you send, even when it comes to lawyers, a Black lawyer dealing with Black youth will know, okay, I know where these problems are coming from, right? Versus a non-Black lawyer listening to a family express themselves and the issues they're going through, right? They may understand it. They may say, nah, I think there's a lot of made up there, right? But somebody that has the knowledge of that cultural background will understand and at least be on the same page with that.
Okay. But the reality is we don't see that right now, right? So like, just speaking from a today's standpoint, what could we work with? Because we got to work with what we have right now, right? And Deng, you don't have to answer this, but I'm just saying, everybody, what I'm saying is, I think from a today's standpoint, we got to work with what we have, right? So I'll give you an example. I feel like CPS is doing a great job. They do have a diversity team. They're doing their best. They're out in the community. They're trying to establish, healthy relationships, and they're super involved. But at the same time, I don't see, because I do work with the youth in the justice system, I don't see a lot of Black youth and the Calgary police having a strong relationship, or a healthy relationship. And I feel like we need to see more. And I get they have a role to do. I get it, but what I'm saying is we need that part of their role is also community engagement. Am I correct? Or,
yeah, true.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I would like to see, to be honest, more them establishing a relationship, the Black youth being more familiar to the Calgary police, just to feel comfortable with them. So that's where I'm coming from. So,
I mean, going back to systems thinking, right? Like, why is a person not, as well adapted? Okay, one of the parents is on the picture, as we see with 50% of Black students in Calgary. But let's look at the bigger picture. In Calgary, specifically Calgary, a Black person, a white person, the Black person makes $20,000 less, straight up. 3 in 10 Black children in Calgary live in poverty, right? And then if you look at the Black unemployment rate, it's another 5% above the base unemployment rate in Calgary, right? So looking at sort of those numbers, I mean, we can come up with a bunch of different reasons why that's the case, but that's not the question. I think that's the root cause. There is a level of poverty, a level of let's say a diminished earning capacity that comes with being black in Calgary. And so, like having identified this previously, those numbers are from a Stats Canada presentation. You know, we, some of the people I've worked with, we put together a board and established the Calgary Black Chambers. Calgary Black Chambers, the sole focus of this organization is to bring together professionals to be mentors and teachers to the younger generation of black students, and also provide them scholarships to get to where they want to go. Because I think it does come back to it. Ekene made a great point. You know, as a black person, oh, you could play sports. You can play sports. Listen, like we all want to be achieving in the business community. We all want to be doing well. And I've seen some black kids when they have that support from their families, they're the investment bankers, they're the lawyers, they're the top end business people. But when they don't have that support, same as any other group, it becomes a little bit more difficult to reach those levels. Deng, I did want to reply to you directly. I feel that with diversity training, any group can help another group. It's not that there's these insurmountable cultural barriers. I just think there has to be more understanding of not just the cultures, but like the reality that we live in, right? Just because you live in a neighborhood that you know the kids are safe, they can run in the streets, doesn't mean that's the same in this other neighborhood where the kids can't go outside because they might have some trouble with violence and gangs. So I do think that there's a level of education. So along those lines, we're working alongside of Calgary Immigrant Services Calgary, to set up an HR program for the hiring of people, because I think that's one of the biggest problems. We heard it the other day. A person said to us, like sort of joking, she did a lot of hiring. If I can't pronounce a person's name, I'm not going to hire him. She said that to us as a joke. Mind blowing, right? But like, there's people in this chat that like we just wouldn't get jobs. I'm lucky enough that I was born to a single mom who named me Jonathan. You know, like it helped, but you know, we're all dealing with this. I think it's sort of in the big picture, it's just understanding that there's a lot more going on in these kids' lives. And we shouldn't be punishing these kids with permanent record kind of things when they're just trying to exist or just trying to figure out how to deal with the situation that they're living
in. John, the thing about name there, I heard somewhere that sometimes people will change their names so they can get the job. You know, they'll make it into a simple, pardon the expression, white name. Okay, so they can get the job. And there's a lot of reality to that. That's sad, you know, so it's kind of making the person lose their identity too, right? If they got to change the name and go in as Peter instead of what the cultural name would be. But going back to the root of the issues the young youth are having, like Ekene was saying in the beginning, I agree with her 100%. Understanding the culture, the background of the youth, where they come from. Like myself, I'll use myself as an example. I come from a country where there was civil war. I still remember that. I still remember when my mom telling us, hide, go down to the bed, you know, there's bullets going and everything like that. And so when we come here, we don't have much when we come here. Okay? So understanding what the person is coming from to begin with, and try and give them something over here in Canada, what Canada has to offer the best. So a lot of students that I've worked with, youth I work with, one of the vision is, okay, one student, for example, from the Congo I worked with when he first came, and he was at Forest Lawn High School. His idea of being successful was selling drugs. He says, that's how I make money. But I says, okay, I can understand if you're selling drugs, you're going to develop some good business skills, right? Just not about selling drugs, but the skills of selling. That would make you a good salesman. But why you think drugs will make you rich and all that? He says, because that's what everybody tells me. That's the easiest way to make money. Because going to school is hard for me. that's where that background thing, that cultural thing that Ekene is talking about, that I'm trying to say. So back home, the educational status is very low. When they come here, they're trying to compete with the one that has the opportunity to have all the education to go to university is not there. So it makes it more difficult for them. So their choices are less on how to be successful. What I do, and I've been doing for years and talking, sometimes I talk too much on this subject, is preventive maintenance. You know, like Francis, for example, I've sat with him and we discussed about preventive maintenance. And I says, why does the government spend so much money when the child is already committed the crime, getting ready to see the judge and all that? Why aren't we doing something before that, and prevent and give them a better chance? So having somebody working with the youth, for example, and saying, okay, Bow Valley College has this great program for LPN. It takes 2 years to get that LPN program. After that, you can get a wonderful job, and it'll be easy to get a job. All you need to do is concentrate on these subjects in your high school. That'll put you closer for your requirements to the high school. So we continue to encourage them, to motivate them, and get them going and make better choices. And this is something we're lacking, is those preventive maintenance programs, the people that, that will help give these messages out. Like all what you've said, everybody is like, it's great. Okay? But that's, for me, I'm passionate about what I do. Okay? Sometimes people say I'm a little bit, I go overboard too much, but I don't go overboard because I'm going because of what I experienced myself, and I understand what they go through. So if somebody had talked to me when I first came to Canada about making better choices, I think I would have done something else, but nobody did. So I did something else. Okay? But I'm glad I did something else, because today I can tell students, don't do that. It's wrong. Okay? So preventive maintenance, that's my future, my passion.
The last year or the year before, I can't remember, there was this huge swarm happening with kids in the train station, pushing people downstairs, old people, or robbing people, beating up bus drivers, stabbing bus drivers, beating up other kids, robbing them, things like that. And we were trying to figure out where this swarm was coming from. Literally, when I say a swarm, I mean a swarm. We're talking about 80 to 100 kids at once. Majority of them, Black kids. A mix of Black kids, Indigenous kids. So one thing came across my desk. There was a kid who was suspended from school, awaiting expulsion hearing. And he brought his letter from the school board. And I can guarantee you that this is probably happening in Calgary as well, if you guys are not aware. I saw the letter, and it said, recommended for expulsion from the public school board. Why is a kid getting expelled from the entire public school board for whatever mistake they've made? Why is there no option for transfer to a different school? Maybe they need a different setting. Maybe they need, a new pair, new friends to associate with. Why is this even an option for a school board to implement? So we're trying to figure out where the root causes are. I think I found one, which is the first entry of a kid into the criminal justice system. So not only are you expelling a kid from school and the entire school board, but then there's a possibility that the reason that you're expelling them from public school is that they probably committed some sort of offense, which has now probably resulted with interaction with their SROs or even the police outside the school. But now you've taken away all other options, and the only thing that they have is to continue in that path because they're bored, they're probably poor, and they need to feed themselves, and they need to feed their families. And three, like they have nothing else to do. So this is primary area in where they start to interact with the justice system. And then when you go on to the justice system, then there's the lack of representation, lack of guidance, lack of navigation. Then there's also the lack of consideration of mental health when it comes to, you know, pre-migration trauma, even dealing with things like domestic violence at home, even any other mental health barriers that they may face. So all of these different things intersect.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for ending it off for this live discussion. We really appreciate your input. I also want to thank all of the panelists for contributing to this live discussion. It was an amazing experience, and I'm sure for all the listeners, you guys all provided great points, and as well, you know, thank you for sharing your personal stories with all of us.